Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. So we're here to talk about a really interesting story today. It's called a 33% profitability lift and how a global consultancy modernizes tech stack to scale all within 7 months. Why don't we have a look at the agenda? So my name is Harv, first of all, Harv Nagra. I'm host of the Handbook, the Operations podcast, and head of brand communications at a platform called Scoro. We work very closely with Sage, and I'm really pleased to be here today with you and very honored that Sage invited me to host this webinar. Alongside me today, I've got Rick Sharp, Senior Solution Consultant from Sage, and Luis Perez from DGA. We'll be hearing from both of them in just a few moments. But a quick look at the agenda today. We're going to kick off with introductions. We're then going to get into a discussion with Luis about his story. We're going to have a quick peek at the integration between Sage and Scoro. And then we're going to go to a Q&A. And as we go through the presentation today, please do pop any questions you have in the questions area, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can towards the end of the session. If there's any we can't get to, of course, we'll get in touch with you and answer those via email. So let's start off with introductions. Firstly, Rick, I'll hand over to yourself.
Thanks, Harv. So I'm Rick Sharp. I'm one of the senior solution consultants for Intacct, specializing in the professional services sector. Was involved with DGA a few years ago now when with that initial selection discussion. So yeah, been with Sage coming up 10 years now, and obviously the Scoro partnership really important to us, but also lots of things coming at the moment with AI agents to help with accounts payable, closing periods quickly, spotting errors in general ledger, or even directly connecting to AI engines like Claude through an MCP. So Intacct keeps evolving and adding new functionality, and take any questions you may have during this call.
Oops, I was on mute there. Thank you very much, Rick, for that. For those of you that may not have heard of Scoro, it's a professional services automation platform, or a PSA platform. So Scoro brings together your quoting, your resourcing, project tracking, time tracking, your expense and purchase tracking, invoicing, and business reporting into one place. It also plugs into your other platforms like your accounting tools, like Sage Intacct, your HR systems, even your LLM of choice like Claude or ChatGPT. So you can use those AI tools to answer questions or take actions inside Scoro. Sometimes people refer to systems like this as ERPs or CRMs or practice management platforms. The correct term is PSA. This was, in fact, a platform I'd brought in at my past workplace when I was group operations director at a multi-entity agency based in the UK. It was a huge part of our maturity journey. In fact, I loved it so much that I joined Scoro just over 2 years ago. So that's a bit about me and Scoro. And with us today, we've got Luis Perez. He's head of group planning, analytics, and systems at DGA Group. Luis has helped shape the organizational and financial architecture of multi-entity businesses across multiple markets. He's worked with global consultancies like Officio, DGA Group, of course, Deloitte, and LEK Consulting. His work at DGA is where his path crossed with mine, much like Rick just mentioned. And it was at DGA that he brought in Scoro as a foundational system alongside Sage Intacct and Expensify. So you're going to hear today how DGA increased their project profitability by 33%, increased their utilization by 20%, and cut their global reporting time from 6 weeks down to 2. It sounds unbelievable, I know, but we're going to get Luis to tell his story, and we're going to get into that in today's session. But before we dive in, Luis, is there anything I've missed about your background?
No, Harv, you've been very kind. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, a bit of context for those of you watching. The way we've prepped for this webinar today is I've kind of done a pre-interview of Lewis and used that to prep some slides and visuals for the webinar today. So, as we talk through Lewis's story, we'll be sharing those with yourselves. So, let's kick off. Lewis, let's start with a bit of context. Can you help us just paint a picture for us on who DGA is, where you operate, the number of entities, how the group came together? All of that kind of stuff would be fantastic.
Yes, of course. So DGA Group is a global consultancy specializing in geopolitical strategy. We advise major corporations in understanding how the geopolitical scenario is going to affect their operations, their business, and if any investment decisions must need to be affected by those. So the firm came from a acquisition of an American firm, Albrecht Sonbridge Group, and a European firm called Interel, joined together by a private equity house or backing, and that created the global firm. We got presence in the US, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia, so it's quite global. We have nearly 400 employees now. We operate across 8 offices in major cities across the world, and we are now, the 2 houses are now under the umbrella of DGA Group.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So, Lewis, you weren't at DGA from the inception, but you came in. Let's talk about what you found when you joined. Again, I'm going to pull up what you told me prior to this conversation, and you can just kind of talk us through it. That would be fantastic.
Yes, thanks, Hab. So I joined probably about a year and a half or so after the creation of the DGA Group. But despite that amount of time, the 2 firms were still operating fairly separately. You know, the US folks were doing their own thing, the European folks were doing their own thing. So that created a challenge to see a view of the entire group. So we had 2 accounting systems with 2 different chart of accounts operating at the same time in 2 different systems, like QuickBooks and Delta Economy. It didn't help as well that some of those systems were operating in a very old version, not necessarily the newest, latest update. Because of that, we had an awful amount of spreadsheets going on for group reporting. Why? Because we needed to stitch it all up because they weren't talking the same chart of accounts, they weren't talking the same language, different accounting standards, so on and so forth. On the other side, on the operational side, we had different practices across the 2 businesses, right? So the US folks weren't used to tracking time. The Europeans were really good at it. So there was inconsistent time tracking. There was also because of this, there was no visibility on utilization or project margin because nobody really knew, okay, how much effort did you put on this project or an engagement? What's the project margin? Are we actually making money on this retainer or project fee? The invoicing was slow because the systems weren't disconnected. Also, it was fairly manual, the whole process. So it was error prone because of this. And the leaders relying on an external consultancy actually to come in and help us get a view of the group. So every month we will get the results of the US, the results of the European business, and then send it over to the external accountancy to be able to create a view of the group. And we were reporting very far behind. So for instance, at the current month, we will report the results of 2 months ago. So that was quite delay, and obviously that was creating a lot of issues in terms of decision making.
You know, one thing that you mentioned there that I thought was interesting is that the team was using very outdated versions of some of these systems, the accounting platforms, I think you mentioned. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, it was mainly because they were on-premise systems, right? So I mean, for the audience that are familiar with this, so the classic or old school way of having systems was on-premise. So you install it in a server, the server gets access by the staff, and then is maintained by your internal IT team. And then it's a bit more convoluted and time consuming to keep updated because someone has to do it. Whereas on a cloud-based system, the updates automatically flow through because it's all push on the web.
Okay, I understand. The other thing I think is quite interesting there is maybe you could tell us a bit more about kind of the reporting. So you mentioned that people were compiling their own reports and sending them in. So there was no group level visibility there. It was all kind of people take ages to reconcile what's happening internally in their entity. They submit it centrally, and then you even had to send it externally to get kind of to
Yeah.
compile the results.
Yeah, yeah. So it was necessary to do that because mainly the task of translating the chart of accounts was significant, and also the fact that
Mm,
the US were using QuickBooks, which is fine for 90% of the small medium businesses out there, but when you have a consultancy that operate with over 150 consultants and working on over 100 projects at the same time is pushing to the limits, right? So that was creating a lot of data, unstructured data that needed to be kind of translated and put together in Excel manually.
understood. Excellent. All right, let's have a look at the next part of the story. So, once you'd kind of recognize those issues, like you said, you weren't there at the inception, but you came in and recognized these issues. Let's talk about how you went about addressing those. First of all, before we get into it, I guess my other question is that you obviously came in and recognized that this can't continue. I think you were telling me,
Yeah.
and there was a colleague of yours that you kind of decided that we need to do something about it. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes. So our CFO Susan Fielding and I were, as soon as we walked in, one of the first things that we realized is the financial picture needs to be put together quickly or quicker.
Hmm.
And the way that we're doing it is just not going to cut it. We were getting pressure from the management team and the leadership team and the board to get more timely data to be able to see how the business is operating and what decisions they need to make. And they were flying blind to a major extent. So there was a lot of pressure from leadership. There was also our own recognition of the way we're doing this isn't sustainable. It's just not going to work. And if we do, say, we do another acquisition that adds another 50 or 100 people, then that's going to be more complicated than what already is. So we needed to change, and we need to change fast.
Right. I was just thinking how, just from my own experience, instinctively, you always know that the working practices you have, when you've outgrown them and they're no longer sustainable, it's just very frustrating and things kind of
Yeah,
grind down. So it sounds like
that's right.
that's what you were recognizing. So you were telling me previously that there was two important steps, defining requirements and getting help. So let's get into each of those, Lewis. What did you decide you needed in terms of requirements, and then how did you go about selecting the right product? Again,
Yeah.
you were mentioning that you brought in an external consultancy. So how did they help you shortlist? So maybe you could go through
Yeah.
both of those.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So basically, the requirements we had weren't out of this world. It's something that as professionals that come from a bigger organization kind of realize, oh, you know what, this actually works quite well for this place, then it should work here as well. So having that
Hmm.
previous experience help as well. So we wanted something that could support a global consultancy. So multi-entity, multi-currency was a must. We
Hmm.
needed something that if we were going into a continent that had multiple currencies, it wouldn't break, right? We needed something that was cloud based because it was something that we wanted to be easily accessible for everybody, that it needed no manual handling in terms of updates or maintenance or requirements. It was everything in the cloud, which is still at this point in time the norm and the standard.
Hmm.
We also wanted something that integrated natively with any system so that we minimize the manual effort in terms of having to pull data from one place to the other, right? So if we
Hmm.
had something that needed to come from here into there, something that had the capability of creating integrations as well. If it didn't have it, at least can we create it? So a strong
Hmm.
API, something that can open up data to the world, it'd be safely, of course, securely, it'd be a plus. And then finally, I think something that as a consultancy for us, project-based work is our bread and butter. So we needed something that help us keep track of the end-to-end project life cycle, right? From lead to quote to project to invoicing and to close. So we had a very clear idea of what we wanted, and just we set out to try and get it.
Mm-hmm. One question I have there, Lewis, especially based on that point that you just raised there about the end-to-end workflow, is how was that being managed previously? I know there were separate accounting systems, but was it just a bit chaotic in terms of how quotes were being built and how anything was being tracked?
Yes. So yeah, as I said, even some business units within the different two practices were tracking their own invoicing spreadsheets, right? And basically they were sending the invoicing spreadsheets to finance, revenue recognition. Like for us, it's very annoying when a business come to us and say, "Hey, by the way, my revenue should be 100, no 50."
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, what do you mean it's 100? Oh yeah, because this and that, or this project, or you don't have this project on your list, or I deliver
Mm-hmm.
more. So it's having that, be able to produce quality numbers that the business will trust. And that was super important, because we if we couldn't do that, then the business will think, oh well, these guys don't know what they're doing, and they don't have the right numbers. I have the right numbers in my spreadsheet, right? So
Right.
that was key for us.
Okay. Thank you for that. So you kind of define those requirements, and like I was saying a moment ago, you were telling me that you brought in an external consultancy. So did
Yeah.
they help you shortlist, and how did that process look?
Yeah, definitely. So we brought in the bean counters, who are an Australian outfit, and they were super helpful. I mean, we couldn't have done this with them at the pace we did it. They provided a great assistance in terms of, one, help us with the system selection,
Hmm.
um, two, help us with the implementation and all the heavy lifting, as well as giving us guidance in terms of how to do this well. And I
Hmm.
think we did a great job. I cannot speak more highly of them. They're great. And I think the other thing, that the reason why we realized we needed external help, was because the business will not stop and wait for us to get this done. They will also expect the day to day to happen. They will also expect the BAU to happen. So even though we're doing a systems implementation to get better, eventually the business will still want the results, right? Can we have the management pack for this month or next month, or where are we with this? Invoices will still need to be raised, so we cannot stop that. We needed to also kind of fly the plane while we're changing the engine, kind of thing. And having
Hmm.
that external help is, in my opinion, is key, because it provides the extra pair of hands you need in the meantime while you do that.
Hmm. I think the larger and more complex, and of course, you can do this stuff on your own with an in-house team, and a lot of people do that. But then you just need to make sure you can carve out that time and headspace. But certainly, I think getting that external help speeds things along, like it did in your case.
Most definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So here's a quick look at the stack you landed on. Tell us about why this was the right mix.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing, as I said, was we needed systems that could talk to each other. So Scoro has a great API and has very good integrations. So that was a must. As a matter of fact, the bean counters were the one that found Scoro first, and then they weren't the ones that kind of brought me into it, and I was like amazed at how good it is. We needed something that was really appealing on the UI side as well. That's another
Mhm.
thing that I forgot to mention in the requirements, because if it's not appealing on the UI, the staff are not going to use it. They're gonna say like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this system is ugly. I don't understand it. It's too hard. I'm just not gonna use it. Can you just use my spreadsheet?" Right? So we brought in Scoro as a practice management system, which basically have our end-to-end life cycle, as I mentioned before. Sage Intacct, our financial accounting system, because as well is a great robust system that integrates very well with different other external parties. Expense management with brought Expensify, because it had the connectors for both systems as well as Scoro and Sage Intacct. We decided to go ahead of ourselves and create a data lake with Azure, and then pull all the data from these systems into Azure, so that we can create any sort of report combining the other systems, including UKG from a HR perspective, because I knew from experience that sometimes you need multiple uh, systems data to create something meaningful from a reporting perspective. So we brought a data lake in Azure, because that's our environment, and then overlay Power BI on it, and we have a set of 4 or 5 operational dashboards that are great and are, at the moment, keep the heartbeat of the organization, and partners know what's going on, and even project managers. For us on the FP&A side, data rails was super important for us to create meaningful scenarios, budgets, forecasts, quickly report, management reporting, board reporting, all that sort of stuff. So that was the goal on having all this combination.
Okay, excellent. I mean, many of these platforms have native kind of reporting as well, but just given the group entity structure and your reporting requirements and all that kind of stuff, you felt that you needed to have the Power BI and data rails in place. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I think all systems have their own reporting, but and they're good at it. But sometimes you just want something customizable, right? And then having that option is great. If you can take the data out and put it somewhere else to combine it as well with the data from some other system, right? And that helps paint a story that is not normally able to be painted with the inbuilt reporting capabilities.
Sure. Excellent. All right. So, given the size of your organization, people might be surprised that the rollout only took 7 months end to end. So, that's super impressive. Tell us how you managed that and whether you kind of rolled this out all at once across all entities and geographies, or you took a staggered approach.
No, we took a staggered approach because we thought that it was easier to do that and than have a big bang everybody on at the same time. To be able to achieve this timeline, I must admit there's a couple of things that we or anybody that's going through this journey must do to be able to do it quickly. And we learned this from previous experience. One is minimize customizations. The
Mm,
more customizations you have or you want to have, the longer it will take for your systems to be implemented. So
mhm.
out of the box was a must. If he doesn't do it out of the box, don't worry. Let's get on with it and see how we can work with it.
Right.
And then in terms of the implementation, we started with Europe because I mean my CFO and I were here in the UK, and it was easier for us to kind of manage that process from here. Also, it was a better time zone for the Australian folks, the bean counters. So it was well, and also the Europeans had a little bit more a higher patience tolerant level than the
Okay.
other people across. So we started with the Europeans, and then we move on to the Americans, and then we went finally into the APAC. So
Okay.
we did it
Excellent.
1 month, and then the next month, and then the next month. So by the end of the year, we had everybody on board.
Right. Excellent. So, I mean, Lewis, we all know that change management is incredibly hard. People have a very emotional change to any kind of change situation, and you'd mentioned previously that each entity was kind of working its own way. Some people weren't bothering with tracking at all, and so on. So let's get into what you did to ensure that this transition would be a success. I'm going to pull up some of the things that you told me, and please do talk us through it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, this quote is super important. The technology alone doesn't fix a process or culture. You have to bring the people on board, and that starts from the top. So we had our CEO and our CFO sponsor the change, clearly and visibly explain to staff, why do we need this change? Why do we need the new systems? Why would it make your life better going forward?
Hmm.
And then tell them that this is going to be a good change, and give them a little snippets of what is it that we're trying to implement. Get their opinion as well. So we were quite forward on like surveys into like, hey, what are the key things that you like on a practice management system, right? And
Hmm.
believe it or not, you appealing attractive UI was the number one. They probably didn't care what the
Hmm.
system do, as long as it looks nice. They want
Hmm.
that. The next thing is training. Training is super key. Uh, do more than less. Overtrain. To be fair, at one point we actually got some feedback from people saying like, you guys that done so much training, which is great. I think just give us a month or two of no training so we can get on using the system, and then we'll let you know if we need more training. But for now, I think we're good. So pre-launch and post-launch, monthly onboarding, quarterly refreshes, that's super key for us. We still do them. And then every now and then when a new feature gets released that we think everybody should know more detail about, we do special training sessions. But the monthly onboarding for new staff is key. The quarterly refreshes for anybody that wants to know more about something. People that get promoted, for instance, and they didn't used to do this piece of the system before. They need to know more about it. They probably saw the initial learning, the initial training, and now they need to know a little bit more about it. Then that's a good way for them to kind of get that knowledge back. And then also handbooks. So having a document to refer to is super important. And now with the adventures of AI, we are now creating bots where we feed them the system handbooks, we feed them the slides, we feed them the sessions, and then the bot knows everything there is to know about the systems, and then actually works as a first line of defense in terms of system support, right? So people can go to the for instance, for us, our ChatGPT chatbot, and then say like, hey, how do I create an opportunity, right? How do I close a project, et cetera, et cetera. And then the system will tell you exactly, will give you steps, or the chatbot, I mean, and then it's really easy for them to help. And that could have been an email that was sent to a human, and then we'll have to take the time to reply for it. So yeah, it's super helpful. And then the other thing that we did that worked really well was having a dedicated systems manager to own the entire platform, so that it wasn't someone's side job, it was someone's full-time job to make sure that Sage, Scoro, Expensify, everything worked fine. Do you have a system issue? This person can help you. Do we need to enhance an integration? This person job is that, right? So every time, every month, every quarter, they're looking into improving the stack.
Excellent. And just having gone through that process, managing that process, I think you've kind of hit all of the points, right? Communication, constant communication from across the organization, across the management is so important. And that reinforcement that you did with the learning, the quarterly refreshers, I think just absolutely brilliant and just really important. Sometimes people forget how to do things, or there's certain processes that might be a bit tricky. So great way to reinforce that as well.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
All right. So let's talk about the results. And I mentioned them at the beginning, which are obviously very impressive. I'm going to pull those up on screen. Let's talk about each of these and how did they affect how leadership ran the business?
Yeah. So it was super positive, and to be fair, that first year after rollout, we were super pleased of the results. I mean, in terms of profitability, we lifted the margins by a third across our portfolio, and that was mainly because we had a better understanding of how projects actually were running. We knew how the retainers we had, the amount of hours we were put into those, how they impacted the expenses, the external consultants that we were bringing on to help us deliver, and all that help us create a really, like, you can't improve what you're not measuring. So improving the profitability was a result of having the data to see the actual picture. Also, as a result of a very attractive UI and a very easy to use system, people were actually more enticed to enter timesheets, which created the result of actually us being able to see where people they were spending their time, how they were being utilized, and who was under, who was overutilized, and try to balance that. So the utilization jumped 20% because we had a better view of who were doing what, and how we can get them to actually be more productive. I mean that obviously the group reporting improved massively. Obviously, it didn't take us months to report. It didn't take us 2 months to report the results of the month before. It was now from 6 weeks to 2 weeks to close and to report, to be able to provide the board some papers, to be able to provide management some papers to prepare the narrative for the board members. So that was also a huge win because we had at our fingertips the data that we needed to create the packs and the spreadsheets and the analysis we wanted to kind of present and model. And also the other thing is invoicing improved massively, which is key for us because our DSO is a key metric, and cash is king, right? So the quicker you invoice, the quicker you collect. So invoicing used to take probably, I'll say, more than a week if I remember correctly, and now it takes a matter of days, probably less, because people have now a better understanding of how to do things quicker. So yeah, billing improved really, really quickly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. You brought up the point on UI a few times, which I think, again, from my experience, that's completely right as well. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I've brought in kind of horrific systems in the past, and they might do everything you need them to do, but if the interface isn't pretty enough and intuitive enough, people feel frustrated by it, right? And they don't want to
Yeah.
use it. So I think that just, yeah, that just resonated with me. One question I might somebody watching might have is that you can obviously see how profitable your projects are now given the systems you brought in, but previously you didn't. So that kind of 33% increase. Did you have a way of measuring that?
Yeah, so we obviously were using the numbers that we had before. So I guess probably you could question the baseline we were measuring against, because maybe it could have been better. But I think it was good enough for us to be able to see, what our margin actually is a lot higher than what it is.
Hmm.
So I mean, we trusted the numbers we were getting from the historical data, and I think the numbers we were getting from Scoro and the new systems were a good result of what we could achieve having good systems in place.
Okay. So there was gaps in the data you had before, but it provided a baseline anyway in terms of
That's right.
what was
Yeah.
happening. The
I mean,
picture might have been
yeah, it's good enough, I guess. I mean, it's better than no data. So
right.
yeah.
Okay, excellent. There's a few other benefits that I've highlighted here. So maybe you could quickly just run us through some of those.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned before, having Power BI overlay over data lake was really powerful and allows us to create dashboards, operational dashboards, which we call in here. And then it focused the team on the project delivery. It creates a really good picture for partners on their pipeline and how they're progressing and what sales they need to close. It creates a focus on our project managers to make sure that the billing is happening on time, the time sheets are getting done, the margins are on track, and also it creates an ability for people to see, okay, who do I need to bring on board, or who is charging too many time, and we kind of need to reduce that. Leadership can see all these metrics live and really easily. It helps us, the new system helps us create better forecasts, which our management team loves and the board members and the PE house loves as well. Like being able to create the scenarios and say like, hey, what happens if we increase our rates, our billing rates next year instead of 3%, 5%?
Hmm.
Yeah. As you guys know, the best way to increase your margin is to increase your price. Yeah, because there's so much cost you can cost. And then also that the feedback of the board and the management team is reporting is just 100,000 times better. If you see the packs they were getting back in the day and the packs they're getting now, is a complete different picture.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lewis. All right. So I wanted to talk about your recommendations and what you'd advise another consultancy that's about to go through a similar transformation. What would you tell them to prioritize? What should they avoid? I'm going to pull up what you highlighted to me, and again, please just talk us through those.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is probably a good summary of everything we've spoken about today, Harb. So the first one, in my recommendation, the strong one, is you're dealing with people. So people want to know what's happening. When they don't know what's happening is when they hesitate. So plan and communicate more than you think you need, because the more people hear about what change is coming, the better they
Hmm.
are at adopting it. The second one is probably in terms of time, to make sure your project is kept on time or your system implementation kept on time, is keep customizations light. If possible, avoid them, because the customizations is where the delays happen. And
Hmm.
because they're customizations, nobody has that before. It's not out of the box. It's something that, and also it creates complications. So that's one thing that I will advise people that want to get the system stacks done quickly is keep customizations to a minimum. Bring external help. Don't hesitate spending the money, because you cannot believe how important it is to have that extra pair of hands, not only to keep your project going, but also to allow you to have the time to do the BAU, because the business is not going to expect the BAU to stop. Invest in training and support. So having the training sessions, key training sessions with the key material relevant for the audience. So one thing I didn't mention before is we didn't have the same training sessions for everybody. So we divided it by our personnel levels, right? So as a consultancy, we have the senior staff, medium senior, and then junior staff, right? So we had the 3 different audiences. We created the content that was interesting for them to hear about and learn about. So it's not a session that is a catch-all, and then because I'm never gonna do this, so I'm not gonna pay attention, I'm gonna do my emails while I listen to this, right? It creates engagement. Remember that technology alone doesn't fix a process or a culture. You have to invest time in communication, in training, in be able to approach people, bring them along, try to get them engaged through surveys, and try to get them to kind of collaborate with you on like, hey, what would you like to see? How would you like this to work? Do you think this is how we're thinking on doing this? Do you like that or no? If not, what would you change? And also don't delay doing this sort of changes. The you know is the best day to start is today, is now. Even if it's to think about, hey, what would I change of the setup I go now, right? I would like to have a way of doing this, and that, right? Bring experts in on board, just even for a consultation. Is that, hey, how do you think you can do that, or we can do this, or how can we can change that? What about all my historical data? Can I bring that along? Where do I put that? All that sort of stuff. So don't delay it, because the more you delay, the more you're gonna have problems later down the track.
That's all really, really good advice. I think sometimes when it comes to a transformation like this, it can feel intimidating. So people put it off longer than they need to. And the
Yes.
situation just gets more and more complex over time. So definitely, that's a good point. You know, I just wanted to highlight that customization point. So of course, with every system you bring in, there's a degree of configuration, which is quite standard. You know, you're kind of understanding how the system works and sometimes shifting your practices to align with it. And sometimes the systems can align with your processes. But I wonder what, when you talk about customization, that's not the kind of customization you're referring to, which is configuration. But are you suggesting it's the kind of stuff to avoid is where you're kind of pushing the platform to change or build something in order to fit your working practices? Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. So is when you try to, I mean, every system has a workflow, yeah, and this is what I guess product managers in the software industry do, right? They understand my system does this very well and it flows this way. And the customization is when you try to modify that flow, because you're essentially changing the core workflow of the system. That takes time and
Understood.
money
Yeah.
to change. For instance, we did do, I wouldn't call it customization, but I will call it more of enhancements, right? So we work with Scoro and Sage to bring integrations closer to where they were, so that it brought the data along better. But we never touched the workflow of the system. The system worked that way, and that's the way it's gonna be. It's about moving the data from one place to the other, where we spend a little bit of money and time getting it better. But it's when you change the core way of the system working, just to, as you say, how to suit your practices, that's when it causes problems, and it causes delays, and it causes the customization to be a drag on the project.
Really, really good point. Every platform has its conventions, and you don't want to break that flow because that's where the complexity comes in. And you know, the data and the automation might not work as effectively if you try to reinvent the wheel there. Appreciate that. Excellent. Thank you so much, Lewis. So everyone, we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions and get into questions. So do please pop your questions into the Q&A box. But I wanted to give you a really quick peek at how Scoro and Sage work together. Just got a couple of slides with visuals. So the native two-way integration with Sage, Intacct, and Scoro is super robust and very configurable. We integrate and sync finance documents. So things like sales invoices, bills, AR adjustments. You can create and update those documents in Scoro and send them to Sage Intacct. You can integrate and sync contacts. So that's customers, customer contacts, vendors, and vendor contacts. Those get synced between the systems as well. Payments, you can get payment data from Sage and see documents marked as paid in Scoro. When integrated, customers on both systems are able to gain really great operational context of the finance data directly within Scoro. And like I said, it's syncing both ways. In simplest terms, you get to see how every invoice line and cost item is tied to specific projects, resources, and deliverables. And again, this supports both manual and automated syncing. This is what setup looks like in the system. In Scoro, you get to decide which data is synced. And what's really powerful is that with some items, you get to select the direction of the sync. So is the truth in Scoro or is the truth in Sage Intacct? And you get to decide that. And we take care of any potential error handling as well. This is how field mapping works. Really simple and intuitive. As you can see, you can match the dimensions in Sage Intacct with the objects in Scoro. And there's always improvements being made between the integration to make it even more powerful as we bring in more clients using both systems. For example, with revenue recognition and all kinds of stuff. So both products constantly being developed and improved, but so is the integration between them. All right, so over to the Q&A. Maybe I'll stop sharing here because we don't have any more slides, and then we can just go to the questions. Let me see. I've got one here. It says, for companies considering this kind of stack, how should they think about system ownership between operations and finance? Lewis, I wonder if you want to take that one.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think that is part of the system design. So when you're planning your workflow, because you also want your workflow to align with the systems, you need to assign ownership and responsibilities. Yeah, so be able to know, okay, who owns this piece of the system, but who is responsible for the data going into it, right? So at the end of the day, say finance own the invoicing, but the data going into the invoicing is owned by the project managers, right? So they need to make sure they put the billing schedule. They need to make sure the amounts are correct, because finance doesn't know that. Finance doesn't know how much we agree the client to. That's part of the negotiation and the delivery of the consultant. So you need to be very clear with the parties and all your audiences that, hey, this part of the system or this part of the workflow is your job. This part of the workflow is also your job, and provide the training for it. Because what happens is when you don't provide the training for it and you don't tell them explicitly, this is you, part of you now, they'll be like, oh, I don't know how to do that. So, it's not my fault I didn't do it because nobody told me or told me how to do it. So that has to be a thing that is very clear from the beginning.
And so maybe the point is the lines are a bit blurred, right? Just because Sage Intacct intuitively you might think that sits with finance and a practice management platform or PSA sits with operations. That's not necessarily how the ownership works. There's parts of the workflow that might be owned even in a platform like Scoro with the finance team, like you gave the example of invoicing, for example. And obviously they need to be very up to speed in terms of how the system works as well.
That's right.
Just looking at the questions, we've got one more here. How long does a typical Intacct implementation take, and how quickly do customers start seeing value? Rick, I wonder if you could talk us through how long an implementation takes.
Sure. I mean, Intacct implementations, typically you're looking at going live somewhere between month 3 and month 5, I would say. So aiming, kind of your first month end, a month after that. So yeah, typically that kind of 12 to 16 weeks is quite common.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, that sounds quite reasonable in terms of configuring the system, maybe setting up some of the workflows, and just mapping things with the tool ecosystem as well.
I think it's the comment Lewis had earlier about business as usual. I mean, we have gone quicker, we can go quicker, but it
Right.
typically isn't suitable for the company. The business has got to carry on. We've got to fit these things in around day-to-day work. So typical, quicker if you really need it to be.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thanks, Rick. So, I've got another question that says, in a world setup like the one discussed, what tends to sit in Intacct and what sits in Scoro? Either of you can take that question, but I wonder, Lewis, if you want to go first.
What sits on Intacct and what sits in Scoro? So Scoro is our project core system, right? So anything project related sits in Scoro.
Mm-hmm.
Intacct, we limit the access to just finance and invoice approvers, because we don't want people going around in this finance system and snooping about. I'm kidding, but it's mainly just about making sure that it is secure. So Scoro is mainly for our staff, our consulting. I mean, everybody has access to Scoro. Not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Only certain people have access to Sage. In
Mm.
terms of the data structure, all project data lives in Scoro. Only the data that needs to move into Sage goes into Sage. Things like invoices. So invoices are raised in Scoro, but then they flow through to Sage.
Mm-hmm.
Payments go into Sage first from our bank and then flow back into Scoro. Things like accounts payable stuff, first Sage, then goes into Scoro through the integration. So there are information that is first recorded in one place and then transfer over to the next system, just so that there's visibility on it.
Mm-hmm.
But then main financials and all that sort of stuff are within Sage. Things like our prepayments, amortization schedules, all that sort of stuff, accruals. That's nothing to do with that. So with the project, so that's not visible in the Scoro.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Rick, anything to add to that, or do you tend to?
I think yeah, I certainly agree with all the comments made, but the often enough these things can kind of exist in both systems. So if you take, say, a customer, it may well be that the first appearance of a customer is in Scoro because it starts off with an opportunity, a new client may even come from a CRM system. So it starts CRM projects into finance. It may well be finance own the record and have to sign off
Yeah.
on it. But then that detail equally flows back, address changes, those kind of things. So I think quite a lot of elements have to live in both systems, and the journey can perhaps start in either, which is why the configuration is quite flexible. But totally agree with Lewis that kind of Scoro is the project operational system, and that's where operational teams work. Intacct is primarily the finance system.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. I'm looking at another question. This one, Lewis, for you. How did Scoro and Sage, how did Scoro and the Sage integration streamline reporting and invoicing? Maybe you could just highlight that again. I know it was part of your story, but.
Yeah, no, basically what it allows us is that the majority of the invoicing information is coming from the project team. And because project teams normally don't have access to finance systems, it's important for them to be able to have a system where the data can flow through from opportunity creation to project conversion to project delivery to then invoicing. Yeah. It improved it because it provides us an easy, seamless way for the project team to give us the data of, hey, this is how much you need to invoice. This is how often you need to do it. This is the person you need to invoice in the company. Don't put X person because that's not the person in charge of the finance part of our client. So all of that information lives within Scoro, and that's all accessible by both our project teams and our finance team. Once the invoice is raised and visible in Scoro, then it goes into our accounting system. to be able to track aging, to be able to track payments, etc. Because that's the part that finance cares about, right? And obviously the project team cares about payment and make sure that the invoices are paid on time, but is mostly a finance function thing. So it's important for that to not live in a Scoro, because it's first going into the bank and then going into Sage. So yeah, that's helped a lot because it provides a place for that to kind of flow.
Thank you, Lewis. I see another question. What stood out for Sage as a GL? Lewis?
For a general ledger, I think it goes back to UI as well. I mean, throughout my career, I've seen different ERPs, and I think, and even through the selection process, we did test it 405, and I think Sage Intacct UI is so simple and easy to understand and use. I believe that any accountant in the world will be able to follow the Sage Intacct menu and be able to understand what they're looking at just by looking at the layout, at the UI. So what was the main attraction? I guess the UI was clean, sleek, and the other thing as well was it was very easy to integrate with all the other. The marketplace is huge. They have different other tools and features that you can buy externally and plug in. And the API as well, is super easy to also work with. So I think that those two special items were are the main things for us.
Lewis, you've come back to that UI point. And again, when we're coming up with our list of requirements, we often think about, well, obviously our kind of core workflows, integrations, API, these days, things like MCP and AI support, but also multi-entity support, multi-currency, all that kind of stuff. We tend to have a list of requirements. And one that's easy to forget is that usability and UI factor. And given kind of my own experience, like I said earlier, and seeing the resistance from the team when that was not a consideration versus how much more, how much happier people are to be using a system. I think I always recommend when I'm kind of advising people, you have to consider user interface usability as a core requirement because people tend to overlook that point. So
that's correct.
I just wanted to highlight that since you have brought that up multiple times today. Excellent. That looks like all the questions we've had come in, and we're coming up to the top of the hour anyway. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, Lewis and Rick, for being here today, obviously, and to everyone that's joined us for this webinar. And Lewis, this is such a compelling story and such a huge success for you and the team. So huge congratulations to you for making this work, and thank you. Thank you so much for telling your story with the attendees today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, and a special thanks to you guys as well for having a very strong, robust system that we can use.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Lewis, if anybody wants to reach out to you or pick your brain about anything, they can go to LinkedIn.
Yes, definitely. Please feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to connect and be of help.
Excellent. Excellent, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll leave it there and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.